My teacher tried to convince me I was stupid, but 3 other teachers proved she was lying. I was always a quiet student. I was never the most popular, but I was never a problem either. I did my assignments, paid attention in class, and usually got good grades. Most teachers liked me. School, for me, was predictable. Nothing unusual ever happened. Until the day I walked into Ms. Laura's class. Looking back now, that was the moment everything started to go wrong. It was a classical literature class. Honestly, it was the kind of subject that fit me perfectly. I already liked mythology, ancient stories, that kind of thing. So I walked into that classroom thinking it would be one of the easiest classes of my semester. But within the first few weeks, I started noticing something strange. Ms. Laura treated me differently. It wasn't obvious at first. She didn't yell at me or openly criticize me. It was more subtle. The way she looked at me, the tone she used when she spoke to me, the way she ignored me when I tried to participate. It felt like she had already decided I wasn't good enough. At first, I ignored it. I thought maybe I was overthinking. Everyone has had that feeling at some point, like someone doesn't like you for no clear reason. But I still believed that if I did everything right, things would get better. Then came the first essay. I remember the exact moment she started handing them back, one by one, calling names with no expression on her face. When it was my turn, I took the paper, sat down, and looked at the grade. It was almost a failing grade. I just stared at it. I had never done that badly in English before. After class, I went to talk to her. I wasn't there to argue. I just wanted to understand. I calmly asked where I went wrong and what I could improve. She glanced at my paper and said it was uninspired. And that was it. I waited for more. An explanation. An example. Anything that could help me. But nothing came. She just said I could come back during study hall if I wanted help. I walked away from that conversation confused, but still trying to make things work. At that point, I thought maybe the problem was me. So I asked for help. A friend of mine was one of the top students in the school. She almost never got anything below a perfect grade. We spent hours working on my next essay. We adjusted arguments, improved the structure, rewrote entire sections. It was easily the most polished piece of work I had ever submitted. I turned it in feeling confident. For the first time since that bad grade, I felt like I was back in control. When I got the essay back, I looked at the grade, and my stomach dropped. Another near-failing grade. That's when something shifted. It wasn't just surprise anymore. It was doubt. My friend was furious. She took my essay to another teacher without telling him it was mine. She said it was hers and asked for feedback. He read it carefully and said it was an A-level paper. Without hesitation, we did the same thing with my first essay. The result was almost identical. It was also considered a strong paper. At that point, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The problem wasn't my writing. Even then, I still tried to fix things directly with Ms. Laura. I went to see her during study hall. Not once, 3 times. Each time, she took my essay and covered it in red pen. She pointed out what she thought was weak or underdeveloped. I wrote everything down carefully. I genuinely wanted to improve. Between each visit, I revised everything she marked. I rewrote entire sections. I tried to shape the essay exactly the way she wanted. By the end, I had multiple versions of the same paper, all corrected by her. In my mind, there was no way this could go wrong. I had followed every single instruction she gave me. When I got the grade back, it was slightly higher, but still almost failing. And the worst part wasn't the grade. It was her reaction. She smiled and said I had improved, as if that result made sense. That was the moment everything clicked. I stopped thinking the problem was a lack of effort, and I started thinking it might be intentional. That idea bothered me more than the grade itself, because it meant it didn't matter what I did. The outcome was already decided. I was angry, but it wasn't explosive anger. It was the kind that makes you want to prove something. So I took my essay to another teacher. I explained I was struggling and asked for an honest opinion. He read it carefully and said he would give it a high grade without hesitation. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this continue. I went to the school administration. I explained everything. I showed my essays, the grades, and most importantly, the version she had corrected. They were surprised. They weren't expecting that. They brought in other teachers to review the papers. Every single one reached the same conclusion. The grades didn't make sense. That's when they decided to set up a meeting. The next morning before classes started, I was sitting outside the office. Inside were the principal, other teachers, my dad, and Ms. Laura. The conversation sounded tense. Even from outside, I could hear raised voices. After a while, they called me in. When I walked in, she looked at me with a level of contempt I will never forget. She started saying I didn't have the ability to keep up with the class, that I didn't understand the material, that I didn't belong there. I stayed quiet. Then the principal placed my essays on the table and explained that other teachers had graded them. All of them gave high scores. Her expression changed instantly. She tried to deny it. She said those corrections weren't hers. But then they showed the versions with the red pen. The handwriting was hers. The notes were hers. There was no way to deny it. After that, everything moved quickly. I was transferred to another class. My previous grades were removed. I got a fresh start. My new teacher was Ms. Anna. She was completely different. She explained things clearly, gave real feedback, and actually cared about her students. On my first essay, I got a perfect grade. On the second one, the same thing happened. I didn't change how I wrote. I didn't do anything differently. I was the same student. The only thing that changed was the teacher. Over time, I rebuilt my confidence. But something stayed with me. For months, I had actually started to believe I was bad, that I wasn't smart enough. And that was the part that affected me the most. Not the grade, but the doubt that stayed in my mind. Sometime later, Ms. Laura left the school. Even today, I still think about it, because a teacher can completely change the way a student sees themselves. And sometimes the damage doesn't show right away, but stays with you for a long time.